second.
Mr. Girth? Yes. Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn? Yes. Good work.
And please join me. Ken, come on, read us in the pledge.
That's a good idea.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Yes.
Move to adopt the agenda.
Second. Mr. Girth? Yes. Ms. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we have a pretty special recognition tonight. The gentleman who has been sitting up here since I've been sitting up here is now sitting in the front row. And we want to recognize Ken a couple of different ways, but before we do that, cue the music.
I love it.
Sorry.
It's
Thanks,
perfect.
Nancy.
It was God. He said you're doing a good job.
Thank you, Nancy. Nice work.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. We are going to do something a little, we're going to present him with something formal, but before we do that, we want to give people a chance, if anyone would like to, come up and say a few words about Ken from the audience. We're going to do that at this time, and then all of us up here will also say a couple of things. So at this point, if anyone would like to come up and say anything about Ken, good or bad? No?
No.
Come on, Hooker. Come on, Hooker.
Go.
All right, my name is Debbie Cocker. I'm sure you all know me.
Hey, Debbie.
Anyway, I worked for Ken for 30 years. I retired in August of '21. I knew Ken before he became a green space, what was the name of it?
Green space negotiator.
Negotiator, yes. Ken was, my mom and I, we were on a bowling team, and Ken and this friend of his, my mom knew him from work. So I knew Ken before he was even involved here. And so we had some pretty good times. We had, not all of them were telling each other.
Thank you.
But Ken, the one thing that I admired about Ken as a boss, what I admired about Ken as a boss is he didn't micromanage. He trusted Nancy and I enough that he knew that we would tell him if we screwed up or we couldn't figure out something, and he would say like, oh, okay, we'll work on it. He always had our back. He always had our back. And the micromanage, that was nice because not everybody likes to be micromanaged. And he just, there was not a lot of stress. We tried to put more stress on ourselves and everything. The job involved, kept getting on I with a bunch of these guys and the department heads and everything, and it became really, really, really good. And Ken, I couldn't, well, there was this other boss that was better than him, but anyway. And so, but Ken was a really good boss, and like I said, you knew he had his back, no matter what, and he trusted us to have his back also, and I think we really made a good team. That's all I
That was so well said, Becky.
Well, yeah, so,
I didn't want to say that.
when needs to get up there? Oh, no pressure. Oh, no, I had pressure, everybody's like, come on, Tucker.
I might cry.
Well,
It's okay.
All right. So Debbie knew him longer, so she had first dibs. But I was grateful to join the team and worked with Ken for 24 years.
No one didn't tell them about how you got hired.
Oh, my God. So I had an interview, and he sent me a letter that says, I don't think you're a good fit. And then turned around and rehired me. It's like, what? So
You were better than the other one.
Yeah, Mark.
that's our story. We're sticking to it. Anyway, no, I've known Ken for 24 years, and I can honestly say that there were some really good times, but life isn't always about good times, and there were some hard times. And the thing that I will always cherish about Ken is that he gave me support through some really dark times. And I always valued that I could come into work and know that somebody had my back and was ready to just cheer me on and say, you can do this, you can get through it, it's gonna be fine. So it was hard. It was hard leaving. It really was, because this was the best job ever. It really was. And the one thing that I'm gonna say is you still owe us a meal at Montgomery Inn, because Ken, being a great boss, used to take us for lunch once a year at Montgomery Inn. And Debbie and I were traveling together, and we were in a head-on car accident.
Oh, no.
Yes,
Big old truck.
yes.
With big gnarly teeth, grill.
What she said.
Coming after us.
What she said. Hit us, we,
It was
hit us head
That's
on,
terrible.
totaled my car. Deb got hauled off to the hospital by our guys because she insisted that she would not go with the Cincinnati firefighters, although we were across the Cincinnati line. And Marv Conley, which this is history, but Marv Conley showed up, and I was a hot wreck, and I was like, oh, Debbie's going to the hospital, we missing lunch. And so Marv said, Nancy, we need to take you to the hospital, because I was driving, had the whole hair bag thing. And I said, no, Marv, I'm fine. He goes, no, Nancy, he said, we've got to take you to the hospital. He said, we want to cut your clothes off. And I mean, I was a hot mess, and that made me laugh. And I'm just like, because I knew Marv, and I'm like, yeah, I knew he was kidding. And there was a woman on the Cincinnati Fire Department. She came over, she goes, they don't have to, they just like to. But the bottom line is, we never got that lunch.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
The bottom line is, I thought, I hope I don't have to do payroll.
He was stressing on a whole nother level. But so sometime, somehow, some way, we need to get back to Montgomery Inn. So
Well,
it
can we
has,
get someplace else? I got all kind of gift certificates.
and that's why I retired. No, no, it has been a pleasure. It's been a joy. It has been an honor
Like,
to work with you, to know you. You are a fine human being, and I will write that on the bathroom wall every single time.
I know.
Call Ken Dietz. He's a fine human
could you
being.
do it in the men's room?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Well, I'll just say something little, but I'm
Sure.
gonna keep it short. I'm Michelle Moxley, by the way. I've worked with Ken for maybe 4 years now, right, Ken? And I just wanna say that I'm gonna miss you. And, thank you for everything.
Well, I hope you forget that one incident we had.
I know. I'll keep that one secret. I'm Paul Cunningham. I'm a retired battalion chief with the fire department here at Anderson Township. And I've been retired 9.5 years already. Can you believe that? And when I started on the fire department, Bill Skeen was the fiscal officer. So I go way back in time with some of these things. And I know, I remember I've been part of the department through your entire tenure as a fiscal officer, as elected official. And, you know, I just have watched the fiscal department just grow, you know, immensely over the years. And a lot of us contribute to what you've done with the department and making it grow. I mean, it used to be one person, then we got two, and then we got three, and so on, and growing, just as the other departments have in the township. But I want to thank you for your service, and it's much appreciated. And you're a good friend to not only me, but the entire fire department too. Because over the years, you've been very supportive of the fire department and its personnel.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Mark Ober, retired fire chief, 5 years now. Ken, thank you for everything. I learned a lot from administration in your office, and you took us where we needed to be. I think We worked on 2 levies, maybe 3. It seemed like a lot of work, but you did a great job for the fire department and the entire township, and I thank you.
That's because the fire department was great.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Well, you can tell him in private, too. Well, I know some people up here would like to say a couple things, so Brian, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Sure. I wasn't sure when I met Ken first, but I was able to dig up my employee evaluation when last night I found it. So it was April of 2002 when I worked for the state auditor's office and I came in to audit Anderson Township. And so I put Ken through the ringer on the audit. And so then, you know, I would see him at events or functions periodically here and there, and we'd catch up. And so this is kind of odd for me to be succeeding him. I'm sure it's much more odd for everyone else because he's been such a constant here for 28 years. People have come and gone, but he's an institution. So I appreciate all the work he's done here for the township, his dedication, and also to helping me so far. He's kept me up to date, what's going on, and he's made himself available, and he's graciously said that I can contact him, and
He doesn't mean that.
he's probably going to get some questions because these are some big shoes to fill, and he's set the bar pretty high.
He has. I think I met you 20 years ago, Ken, when we moved back to Anderson. And I wanted to get involved in some things, so I met with you and Russ Jackson, and I was like, how do I get involved? And you're like, oh, we got an idea. Why don't you help us run our campaign? I said, okay. And that got me involved in some political things, obviously, and we ran a certain club together. And in addition to the campaigns, I think, obviously being elected and being next to you up here has been great, but it's also been great just being your friend. I think anybody that describes Ken would say he's one of the nicest human beings on the planet. And I think there's proof in that because if you Google Ken Dietz, Anderson Township, nothing comes up. I did it today. Nothing comes up. And in this day and age, that's saying something. I mean, your consistency and your approach to how you've run the office, I think, is exactly exemplifies the way you've run your life, and it has been stellar. I know it's not easy for you to walk away from this, but you've earned it, and you're leaving this office in tremendous shape. You're leaving it with a wonderful team. We have a great successor, even though Brian's got big shoes to fill. I think you're the right person at the right time for the reasons you also just mentioned. And I think there's a lot of people that unfortunately don't know what goes on in this building every day, and take it for granted. I did. But you have been a big part of the culture and the success of what goes on in this building. And you should be proud of that. And so even though there's not a ticket tape parade down A1A Beachmont Avenue, also known as the Chicken Strip these days, you should know that thousands of people appreciate you and what you've done here, and especially the ones sitting in this room tonight. So I do limericks from time to time, and they tend to be long and stupid. I think tonight, though, is more appropriate. A toast to you is more appropriate, even though we don't have any drinks, which is a real shame. So let's raise our waters. And let me say this. 28 years ago, a younger man took the oath to protect the public's treasure and sign a ton of POs. His report from the dais most third Thursdays in A-Town were, our revenues are up and our expenses are down. Ken Dietz served with honor in the military and in this public entity, and the public served him back at the varsity in ATP. We miss you. We love you. Thank you for all you've done. Cheers to you, Ken Dietz, on a hell of a run.
No, I'm crying. So I'm no poet. And now I don't want to cry, but I will say it's hard to believe, Ken, that your retirement date is here. It's bittersweet because while we will all miss working with you, there is no one more deserving than you to retire. It's been so wonderful working with you. You embraced me with open arms. You've left a legacy that have impacted so many people that you may never know. We are so appreciative and grateful for everything that you've done. I've learned so much from you, and I've loved working with you. Thank you for everything, and congratulations to you on your retirement, Ken.
And you have a resolution of appreciation with respect to the services of Kenneth G. Dietz, fiscal officer. Whereas the Anderson Township Board of Township Trustees, with the utmost pride and appreciation, acknowledge the retirement of Kenneth Dietz, who has faithfully served the community for 28 years as fiscal officer. And whereas Mr. Dietz has managed the township's more than $50 million budget, payroll, quarterly and yearly reports, pension, and all issues related to township finance. And whereas his professional background includes experience as a real estate consultant and negotiator, and he has been active in acquisitions of green space properties for the township. And whereas Mr. Dietz played a crucial role in maintaining cash reserves and a low debt burden, which resulted in the township earning excellent credit ratings from Moody's Investors Services, Inc., which is important to economic development in Anderson and helps to fuel capital projects and enhance services which add to the quality of life for residents. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Township Trustees of Anderson Township, Hamilton County, Ohio, that on the occasion of his retirement after 28 years of service, Kenneth G. Dietz is hereby honored for his diligent and dedicated service to the residents of Anderson Township.
And I move to adopt that resolution.
And I will second it.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawston?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Thank you. Thank you, Josh. 20 years old wearing those shoes.
I know.
Good luck. Thank you.
Ken, please, the floor is yours.
Did you say I should speak? I have notes here that included my family, all the people that went to the reception, so I don't have anything to say, really. I would say, just by starting out, all the accolades that are attributed to me, my staff, and that happened because of almost everyone in this room. I mean, from assistant administrators to the trustees, administrator, legal counsel, all the department heads, former department head, the dynamic duo, as I call Debbie and Nancy. It's just a team effort. You know, I got credit for it, and I'm getting credit for it, but without almost everybody in this room, it would not have happened. And that's why we have some of those things like a great bond rating of AAA bond rating,
We have balances in all our funds. We have to keep an eye on those, obviously. We have, and I am going to have to refer to my notes here. We had, to my recollection, going through the 14th audit, we had 13 successful audits by the state auditor's office, thanks to the record keeping in the clerk's office over the years and the fiscal office nowadays. And you could not ask for a better team than what we have now and what we've had in the past. It's just been incredible. And if there's one gaffe in the department heads or whatever, we would catch it right away and put an end to it. So that's why the success of this township. Just a brief history. Many, many years ago, I moved to Anderson Township in 1971, got involved in local politics, happened to get involved in a couple trustee races. Because of that, I was asked to be on the Green Space negotiating committee back in 1991. At that time, I think Peggy Rice, Russ Jackson were, I don't think Rex was on board at that time. Mike Walton, and I think actually Bob Dorsey was there then. And I really said it was a nice job. I got to go down to Old Fort frequently. Ran into a person that I know just passed away, Claudius Roberts, and scared me to death. But he turned out to be one of our friends, I think. So, and then I just kept being involved because the trustees were doing such a great job. The township was moving along. And then I started my own business, and I was fortunate enough to have a lot of free time, but I also was very busy. I could negotiate when I had meetings and that, so it was a perfect opportunity for me to accept being appointed as township clerk back in 1995 when Bill Skeen retired. So, and then I walked in and I saw my staff, and I don't think Nancy was there at that time, but the accident tells me why the president and vice president of the United States don't fly together. So, but Debbie and Nancy were wonderful. When they retired, we tried to get the office back in shape, and as of right now, I think we have. We've got a wonderful office. Thanks to the administration helping us out. Thanks to the trustees agreeing to some of the things we had to do. I think we're going to have a successful next 5 or 6 years, 10 years, hopefully, or 20 years, I hope. But it's just been easy once we found the right complement of people. I would say, and I continued my consulting business up until 2010, something like that, and then I was working for the sheriff doing some appraisal work, and that became a very busy job for me, so I gave up my consulting, but I was still able to do the township fiscal office work. Like I said, with all the accomplishments that we've had, attributed to everybody. I mean, everybody, I go back, I couldn't name all the names that we had in the past, but it's just been wonderful, and I thank everybody. I thank the employees, department heads, trustees, administration, if I'm forgetting anybody, and the citizens. Our residents have been very supportive of our levies and things like that. So I would just say thank you. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time for me.
I just want to say, I didn't say anything earlier because I thought if I said it, I'd cry and wouldn't be able to read the resolution.
like me.
So everything they said, I agree with, and I think Nancy said it. You are a fine human being. And just, as Josh said, you're one of the nicest people anyone could ever meet, and I appreciated that.
I don't have any reason to be different.
You are.
I've I've been surrounded and have surrounded myself with great people. That's all I can
It's
say.
much appreciated. So thank you. Okay. Ready to move on? Yes.
You gonna stick around for the rest of the meeting?
You don't have to anymore. You don't
You're
have to
welcome to
stay
stay.
anymore.
I'm staying.
We'll make it quick.
Yes, we're moving on quickly. Okay, beautification awards.
Hi, Sarah.
Hello all. So as you are aware, the We Thrive Anderson Committee does a yearly call for nominations for beautification awards. We do them on our Facebook as well as the Insights. We accepted nominations through the end of July, and then the committee selected our winners for this year. So our first winner of a residential beautification award is 1466 Wolf Angle Road. And the property owners of this lovely yard are David and Karen Nineman, and I believe they're here.
Josh, did you get a picture? Somebody would take a picture. Let me stand over there and someone take a picture. That's what we did. Somebody
Steve's
take a
got it.
picture. What a pretty nom. Thank you. It's so beautiful.
We especially appreciate people like you that, on our main roads, people are driving by. So, thank you.
So we have two commercial landscape winners for this year. The first outstanding commercial landscaping property is the Gruel Dempsey Orthodontist, which is located at 1163 Fell Lane.
All right.
Actually feel cheated because I didn't get to meet this man. There's only a few of us here who probably did, and it's now I know where my tax money's been well spent. And he left me a little bit left over so I could do the project. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I think my son's braces paid for at least one of those rocks.
And
It looks great.
our other winner of our commercial property category is St. Timothy's at 8101 Beachmont Avenue. And I'm not sure if they have a rep here. I don't think so.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, public forum, individuals who wish to address the board should state their name and address for the record, make their points as clearly and concisely as possible, and limit their comments to a maximum of 3 minutes, which may not be shared with or yielded to others. All comments shall be directed to the board of township trustees. Anyone? Okay. Trustee comments?
I said enough.
Have we said anything?
I think we
all
did.
said it.
We
Okay.
did.
Moving on. Now, our new fiscal officer, Brian Johnson. Brian?
All right, well, you have the normal financial reports in your packet. An update is that we received the second half settlement, and so we're processing that. And the auditors were on site Monday and Tuesday. So for the fiscal year end 2021 and 2022. So that's ongoing. I'm going to flip to 5C first. we need to approve a new fund. During the last meeting, the board accepted some grant award money for Ohio Ambulance Transportation. So this is the fund that's going to be reported in.
I would move to approve the new fund mentioned by Fiscal Officer Johnson.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
And then if you go to 5B, that's an appropriation change related to that fund for
Okay.
the related expenses.
I move to approve the appropriation changes as presented by the fiscal officer.
Second.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
And then we have the July 13th minutes.
I will move to adopt the minutes from July 13th, 2023.
Second.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
That's all I have.
That wasn't
Thank
that
you.
hard, was it?
Wasn't too bad.
Nice work.
Okay, Margaret.
Good evening. In your packet, you have a resolution regarding the annual information filing for the township for the fiscal year 2022. Each year, you all file such a statement which updates information, financial information about the township that goes into a municipal securities repository database, the purpose of which is to permit bondholders trading in the secondary market to have current information about your finances, which of course are very good. And with the principal payment that will be made in December this year, the one series of bonds that you have outstanding, and it's the only series, will be under $2 million in principal amount. And those were the bonds issued in connection with the improvement of the recplex. So there's a copy of the AIF in your booklet, and there is a resolution that, for your consideration, to accept and approve that annual information filing and to direct the filing of it with the MSRB.
Thank you. I move to adopt the resolution accepting and approving the annual information filing of the township for fiscal year 2022 and directing its filing with the MSRB for continuing disclosure purposes.
Second.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing from fire and rescue.
Good evening. Tonight I have two things. I asking for money tonight or to spend anything. Just two announcements. The first is the announcement of October 8th through the 14th is Fire Prevention Week. Everybody asks why it happens in October. It's because the Great Chicago Fire in 1871 that killed about 250 people, left 100,000 homeless, and destroyed over 17,000 structures in a 3-day fire. So that's why it's in October. The theme for 2023 is Cooking Safety Starts With You. It's basically, there's going to be all kinds of announcements through March or through October talking about safely cooking in your home. They're really stressing extinguishers. And since we got a pretty good crowd here, hopefully by word of mouth, these things will get out. We want people to have extinguishers in their kitchen. And they tend to put them maybe under the sink, and over the years when you put the Cascade and everything else in there, they get pushed to the back. And I know in the past we actually had one resident who was burned rather badly because she was trying to pull the extinguisher out from under the cabinet while the stove was on the fire, and so it burned one side of her before she got to the extinguisher. And I remember getting to the scene, there was a pile of things in the kitchen floor, where she had pulled things out. So you want to put your extinguisher, you want to mount it. You don't have to mount it where you're going to bump it all the time, but you put it somewhere between your cooking surfaces and on your way out. The reason people do that is because when you go to get the extinguisher, if the fire has grown to a point where the extinguisher isn't going to handle it, you're no worse the wear for going for it, and you're closer to the door, okay? The other thing, we've had a few of these recently. If there's a fire in your oven, turn the oven off, and leave the oven shut. It's a metal box. It'll hold it. Call the fire department, turn it off, and get out of the house. The last thing I want to say, everybody hears it, and well, I have two more things relative to this. Do not put water on grease fires. There's videos all over the internet about people putting water on grease fires. All it does is expand the fire. We've had people try and throw grease fires out windows. That I remember we've had several fires, and it's never a good thing. Either put a cover on it if it's too big, get out, or go for the extinguisher, hopefully an ABC extinguisher in your kitchen that is properly charged and in a convenient location. Lastly, have working smoke detectors in your house on every level of the house. And right now, the technology has the detectors where they will talk to each other almost via Bluetooth. You don't have to hardwire like in the older days where the only way they would talk is if they were hardwired. Now, there's a number of buttons you can switch, and as long as they're all lined up, if something happens on your second floor, it'll tell you in the basement. Or if you're sleeping and something happens in the basement, it'll set off the detector on your second floor where you're sleeping. Those can be bought at Home Depot and Lowe's and any other on Amazon, but it's important. It's a big safety feature for those to be able to communicate, especially if you got a multi-level house. The last thing I wanted to talk about is one of my favorites. It's Safety Services Day, and it's going to be October 14th, Saturday, October 14th, between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. I will be there as head hot dog and Met cook again. We welcome everybody. My hope is that the new apron will be ready to be driven on by then. We have some contingencies in place in case it isn't, but we have the Hamilton County Sheriff. We usually have UC come out, representatives from their mental health team. We also have individuals from Air Care come out. And there's even a possibility that helicopter might make a trip out as part of this. But, we invite everybody, and I think about a third of the people plan to come, and the other 2/3 just drive by and see all the activities and show up with their kids. It's a great time. We have fire safety talks. We talk about, and we have actually a live burning example of why you need to close your doors at night in case there's a fire and the benefits of doing that. We have small sets of fire gear to put on small kids, and they pull small hoses. We get pictures of things like that, pictures in the driver's seat. It's just a great time. It's really only second to the 4th of July parade as far as getting people together, I think, and just kind of celebrating the fire department and letting people see what we do. They can climb in the engines, get on the boats, just touch a truck type situation. So we're inviting everybody to that. Put it on your calendar. I'm hoping, again, for good weather this year. We've been very fortunate and blessed in the past. I'm hoping for another one. So that's all I have for you this evening. Thank you. I did want to make one other comment relative to Ken. 5 years ago, I took over the role as chief I'm glad he's here, from very, very big shoes. It was a lot of responsibility, and the one thing I didn't have to worry about was the financial aspects of the department. Chief Ober had it set up for success in the future, and Nancy and Debbie helped me immensely, as did Ken. There was a number of times I walked down and I said, hey, what do I do in this situation? And everybody was there in a heartbeat to help me get through it, through what could have been a difficult transition to what was a very simple and relatively easy transition. So thank you, Ken. Much appreciated. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
you.
Okay, planning and zoning, nothing, sheriff's office. See you. Public works, Eric.
Good evening. This evening we have some additional funding for the 2023 paving contract. As the board is aware, John R. Jurgensen just completed the 2023 paving contract with a total cost of $2,307,332.38. The project was originally bid for $2,000,000, $17,429.10 with a 10% contingency of $201,743. I had estimated 510 cubic yards of asphalt for full-depth repairs for the subgrade of the roads, and we ended up with a total of 1,195 cubic yards of full-depth repairs. It's kind of hard to tell what's underneath that until you get the 2-inch grind off, and you can see the deterioration in the subgrade of the road, and that ended up being excessive on a handful of streets. And that's where the difference in the cubic yard estimate came from. With that, this is the source of the difference in the project is basically $88,160.28, and these additional funds are needed to fulfill the final invoice and close out this year's paving project for John R. Jurgensen. And that motion's before you.
I move this board hereby agrees to ratify the allocation of $88,160.28 from the 1994 TIF funds, which exceed those authorized in Resolution 23-0216-6 for expenses incurred by the John R. Jurgensen Company as part of the 2023 paving project.
Second.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
That's
Eric.
all I have.
I won't call you.
Yes, good evening. We have a couple of items for the board's consideration tonight. The first is the annual setting the time for trick or treat. There's a motion. And I would inform the public that while these hours are set township-wide, each neighborhood can choose to set a date and time for their trick or treating in their neighborhood if they would prefer.
I move to set Tuesday, October 31st, 2023, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. as Halloween trick-or-treat in Anderson Township.
Second.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Thank you. The next item before the board is under 1B in your packet. This relates to a cooperative agreement that staff have negotiated with an individual who did some damage to township-owned property, and we would ask for authorization to enter into this agreement.
I move to adopt a resolution approving and authorizing a cooperative agreement with Barbara Lee Brorman and Nicholas Lee Brorman Foster relating to the misuse of an open space parcel in the township and payment of expenses of remediation therefore, and authorizing the execution and delivery of said cooperative agreement by the township administrator.
Second.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Thank you. I've had the opportunity over the last several weeks since Ken decided to retire to have private conversations with him about our years together, because you started the year after I did. So we've worked together for 28 years, and appreciate your service to the township, your loyalty and dedication to staff. I was telling your daughter today how much I admire you, because throughout you considered your granddaughters, you took your family first, and you took care of them. And I remember when you would leave to go pick up the kids from school or to bring them in. And, you know, that's what this community is all about. That's what this township staff is all about. We take care of each other, and we take care of our families, and we take care of our residents. So thank you for that. I will just comment, I am surprised that your notes were not on a Post-it note, because I think I have a stack this thick of Post-it notes you've given to me over the years. So anyway, thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it. Our next regular monthly board meeting is October 19, 2023. That's back on a Thursday, 5 p.m. And move to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Girth?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawson?
Yes.
Mrs. Stone?
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
We love you, Ken.
Welcome.